Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the Traveling Saleslady Podcast. This week, we're going to have some fun. I think Traveling Saleslady, this is a fun one because this is like sales and everything that we talk about within sales itself. So, do you want to give us a little more information with our guest, Mr. Stephen?
Yes, I'm excited, Syya. I am excited to speak with Stephen and dig into his insights. So, our guest today for our viewers is Stephen Pia, who is the founder, the sales trainer, a coach, years and years and years and years. I don't want to date him, but he has years and years and years of sales experience. And Stephen, maybe as a way of getting started, do you just want to do a quick intro on your background? I think that would help everyone.
Sure. So prior to launching the training and coaching company 24 years ago, I worked in the technology media space at a company called Ziff Davis, and we put on events. We launched digital sites. We had publications, and it was all geared towards serving an audience of technology enthusiasts and so forth. And yet I always wanted to be a coach. You know, I was riding home one day when I was a senior in high school, and I saw these coaches painting a house. And I was like, which one of you owns this home? And they clink, 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 clink off the ladder. And they're like, we don't own this home. We have to paint to make ends meet. And I was like, I don't like to paint. And so one of the corporate world, but always had this desire to coach. When I launched the company, it fulfilled that dream. So that's kind of that's the backstory of how it got started.
And so sorry, C, I'm cutting you off. This is not good.
This is what conversations are all about. Yeah. I mean, we're really excited. So Stephen, like, I know Ziff Davis, so I spent almost 20 years in tech sales. So I know about you guys, and you guys put on a good show. Let me tell you, guys, I really enjoyed a lot of the events that you guys would host. And just like the output of the content you had, it was really awesome. So that's awesome.
Yeah, that's great. We were known for it, which is great. So now here at Coach Media, it's pretty simple. We work with revenue organizations and really three distinct groups: either the leadership of revenue, the individual contributors within the sales ranks, could be SDR, BDR, AE, enterprise, or our fastest growing area is customer success. There's a real push in today's B2B companies to up-level their customer success teams, so the salespeople aren't living in the quagmire of the deal, and they can going and being strategic and having the CS rep sort of own the day-to-day relationship with the client.
And so I have a question about that. From your start 20-something years ago in sales to where you're at now and where you're seeing a shift in the trend, how about as far as salespeople in general compared to the trend? Do you see different attributes within salespeople, different motivators? And maybe you could dig into that a little bit.
Yeah, well, at the core, the fundamentals of sales has never changed, nor will ever change. That said, there are things that have happened over the years that have created opportunities for salespeople to get better. One in particular is just their ability to get information so quickly in their hands. You know, oftentimes an example of that is when we're coaching sellers, we'll say to them, whether it's an outreach note or kicking off a meeting, like, how dare you kick an outreach note or meeting note off without doing a show me, you know me, without showing the person of the team you're meeting with, like, oh, by the way, congratulations on this, where they're looking like, oh, of course he should have known that. It's been all over the wires. Like, back in the day, it was a little bit more difficult to kick a meeting off with a show me, you know me, because it was just harder to glean information. So that would be something in particular that has just violently changed. A salesperson that goes to a meeting today, if they're not already half informed about the company, they're going to get laughed out of the room, virtual or in person. Where in the past, it would be, oh, take as much time as you want to learn about us, because you couldn't have found this information anywhere. So that just in particular has really changed.
Yeah. You know where I'm going and I'm thinking about this, and it's kind of funny, is I'm thinking years ago, right? You could go into a prospect's office and sit down, and you might see a painting in the back of a horse, and you'd mentally make a note. Ooh, Mr. Smith likes horses. That's our comment. And now I'm thinking everything's digital. As you're writing horse coming across as a race car or something else where you can't even keep, where we've gone digital, that whole thing has just changed too.
Yeah, and we should already know the guy likes horses before we even start the meeting.
Exactly.
Think about that. That's changed. I mean, it's a little thing, but just the dynamic of that is kind of interesting.
Can I just tell you what you totally remind me of, you guys, was it's a Key and Peele skit, and it was supposed to be a play on the it was a Kevin Spacey movie, and he played the twist at the end was he was that guy. I forgot the name of the movie. But basically, Key and Peele did a scene out of there where the detective is like interrogating him, and the guy's like, so, and then he's basically riffing based on all the posters and pictures he sees behind the detective. So he's like, so what's your name? And then there's like a picture of a horse named like Billy. He's like, Billy. And you've got it. I will send you that link, Stephen, because I think it's what you just articulated. It's on the nose, and it's pretty funny.
Oh my God.
If you haven't seen it, it's hilarious.
Yeah. I'm in.
Oh, sorry. I digress. I didn't mean to digress, but it was just cracking me up when you were just describing that. I was like, oh my God, it's a Key and Peele video. So.
Too funny. Too funny. What do people want to know when they bring you on to coach sales teams, for example? What are they looking for from you too? Is it inspiration? Is it reminders? Is it all the above?
If they get inspiration out of it, that's a bonus. I tell folks I either coach individually or teams. If you get inspired, that's an extension benefit. The goal is to get great at the basics, right? Everybody talks about getting back to the basics. My running joke is I need to get people up to the basics. Right. In terms of sales, there are just some fundamental things that sellers need to be great at, and skills. And one of the things we're trying to do is, and I need to be careful about how I position this, but my belief is this whole methodology thing that's been around for years, I think that's starting to lose a lot of steam. They're way too complicated. They're way too difficult for salespeople to be trained on and implement. We're just trying to help companies look at, there are just defining skills sellers have to be great at, right? Right. Let's just focus on that, i.e., can they manage their business? Can they manage their time? Can they get meetings? Can they prepare for them? Can they ask good questions? Can they deliver their value proposition? Can they do some level of competitive positioning? Can they manage proposal requests? Can they overcome objections? I mean, do we have to call it a methodology? Or can we just be great at those skills, right? So that's kind of where we're at. And if I can, well, let me stop there. But then there's one really cool thing we're doing with companies. But I'll stop there and see if there's any follow-on question from that.
For me, you've nailed it on the head as far as like I left in 2017. Okay. So like for me, it's like all the rigmarole and discipline that I had to when I worked at, a tech company. I hate to say it, but you're giving me like flashbacks of like, oh my God, do I have to go back into the CRM and update everything all over again? Now running my own business, I understand why we needed to do it now more than ever. But back then, man, that if I could have had someone help me with that portion of it, because that's like the mundane data entry. Who did you speak with? When's the last time you talked to them? Like all that stuff. So how do you help particularly field reps maintain that level of discipline? Because I'm hearing you, but I remember my like terrors of like, oh my God, I just been on a plane all day. Oh, now I got to go in the CRM and update everything. So how do you address that for sales professionals?
Well, if you take a step back, what's the most important asset for a seller? Information. Right. And so you help sellers understand how important that is. And the fact that part of what we teach salespeople is to manage up. Point being, when a seller is complaining and fetching and bemoaning to me that their manager's doing this, I stop them in their tracks and say, time out. That's an indictment on you, not your manager. The only reason I ask in my manager training all the time, raise your hand if you like to micromanage. Nobody ever raises their hand. I'm like, did I ask the wrong question? Let me ask it again. Come on, managers, like 30 of them in a room, raise your hand if you like to micromanage. Nobody raises their hand. And I'm like, okay, you're confirming my point. None of you wake up in the morning and say, I cannot wait to micromanage my sales team. No, but you all have done it, right? And everybody, 30 out of 30 will go, and you're probably doing it today, right? And 30 out of 30 will raise their hand. I'm like, you don't like it, do you? And they're like, no. I'll say, so get your sellers to bloody manage you. Get them to manage up. And so that goes back to the point of sales hygiene and information. You can't do that as a seller if you're not inputting and first of all, tracking and recording the right information, and then making sure from a sales hygiene perspective, you put it in there. So our big thing is managing up, which is kind of a unique way of looking at it, right?
Yeah. I was going to say too, I think you make a good point. When you have a CRM, I think the differentiator between your people that truly are sellers want to put that information in because that becomes their holy grail of the information and allows them to manage up. When I think manage up, I think, hey, manager, please help me. Can you jump in on this call? I've gotten to this point. I'm stuck here, but let me give you all the details. And can you help me? Because I want to close that business. I want that. So it's managing up and pulling when needed. Now, not all the time and not using it as an excuse. That's the key. But I think that is a big differentiator. I always think in sales, there's a big difference between want to and have to. Yeah. And if you can inspire want to, huge differentiator.
Yeah, I just do double click on that all day long. And quite frankly, one of the things, I'm going to just do a quick riff tonight. One of the things that's sadly missing in the corporate revenue world, and I ask this all the time to chief revenue officers, and I do it as a joke when I first meet them. I'll be like, can you do me a favor? You can screen share. Can you pull up an individual coaching plan of one of your sellers? I'm like, and not the scorecard, not where they're at revenue. And I tell them, I don't care about revenue. Like, I don't care about the scorecard. Individual coaching plan that you and that person are working on, or you and one of, or them and one of your directors or RVPs, where you can pull it up and show me where they are against competencies and skills and where they are against them and what their next step. And they're like, we don't have that. No one in 24 years has pulled up an individual coaching plan. So what we're trying to do is work with our clients to say, at some point in the future, everybody in the revenue organization is going to be able to go, hey, here's my ICP, my individual coaching plan, and I'm really good at this, and I'm really good at that, and I'm working with Deanna on asking better discovery questions. That's my weak spot, and for the next month, this is what we're doing. Isn't that all you coaches out there, all you managers and leaders that say you're coaches, why don't you have an individual coaching plan with your team? That's resonating big time in the marketplace. I mean, big time. Because everybody knows the second they hear that, they're like, he is so bloody right. How dare we not have that?
Good for you. Yeah.
So that's been a real winner in terms of a theme and a mantra, right?
Yeah.
Hey, traveling sales lady, I just had a thought.
Oh, is it time, Syya? Is it time for our Click to Commerce segment?
I think so.
Falling asleep with your head in the wrong position is a pain in the neck. You deserve Tausi Comfort for head, neck, and back support. Go to tausibrands.com and get your comfort on.
What do you see, Stephen? I'm curious. In the eyes of a seller that is super, super excited, where you can tell you're coaching a team and you see it in the eyes or you hear it in the voice. What is the fun part that you think lights up salespeople, in addition to, hey, I hit my goal, I got money in the bank, I did that? What do you think are some things that light people up?
Yeah, I don't think I've been saying this for years. I don't think most sellers are money motivated. But that's the stick. But it's funny when a seller's interviewing, for them to say they're not money motivated, they think that would be taken the wrong way. So everybody says it because they think it's the answer they're supposed to give. But I don't think that's what motivates them. I think what motivates a seller is them gaining outcomes on work that they're doing, them gaining positive feedback from their boss or from their peers, them gaining positive feedback from a client or a prospect telling them they're doing a good job. To me, that praise will always be the bank. That's the bank of goodwill. That's the tank that any seller needs to be full or trending towards full. Those are the things that motivate sellers.
Yeah. I agree with you. It's all about feeling good. I think sales is tricky. You have to perform. You get paid to perform, but you've got to feel good. You got to feel good about what you're doing and who you're working with and who you're meeting with and all of those circles.
Yeah. And I tell sellers all the time, we're not saving lives here, gang. Be yourself. Don't ever change. I can't stand any of those trainings that say personality A, mirror person. No. For the love of God, you work with me, you will never change one iota of who your authentic self is. Because again, that is just so overrated and overblown and complicated. And that's the other thing. Just have fun, to your point, Deanna. Just have fun and have fun with people. Most people want to have a good time when they're talking to a seller. It was a good conversation. They left me with a memory. We laughed a few times. Sometimes I think salespeople are so bloody rigid and I gotta follow this and I'm up against the clock and I can't have a joke. And it's like, what's the main, think about it. What's the main goal of any salesperson at the end of a meeting? What's 99.9% of the time? What's the only goal of a meeting?
I was going to say, get it to the next step. That to me is, what did you come in for the objective? Did you meet it?
Just to get another at-bat, to get another meeting.
Yeah.
And so what's the rush? One of the things that I'm seeing with sellers, I'm like, slow down. There's an old adage, take your time to hurry up. Slow down. They're not going to say yes to you today. They're not going to say yes to you in the next meeting. Some of these sellers I'm selling have a year. They're trying to sell $700,000. Like, it's just take your time, just live for another moment. And so when sellers gravitate towards that, they're like, oh, then I can have fun on a call. I don't have to feel like I'm speed dating this relationship or speed dating this deal. I can just have fun and let it just happen. And I'm still following a process, if you will. And so I'm just trying to encourage salespeople to just have more fun in their calls.
So it sounds like to me, really, what you're really emphasizing is getting away from that transactional relationship and more truly a real relationship type engagement. So how do you overcome that for publicly traded companies where, come on. Look, the reason why sales is so much fun is because for sales folks, you can let your personality shine, as you say, your authentic self. But how do you balance that with, I can assure you, if it took me a year to do a deal, I would have gotten let go of, my position in the roles that I was in. So how do you balance that and how do you address that?
Well, it depends on, of course, it depends. Every seller that goes to a company, there is an average deal length that they're told on day one. Like if Deanna tomorrow was to start a new job and you were her boss and you said, Deanna, on average, it takes 8 months and 3 weeks for us to close a deal. If you're 6 months in, you shouldn't be getting anybody. Now, there's benchmarks, and are you achieving the benchmarks in terms of the deal flow? But if you haven't closed the deal, you shouldn't have closed the deal. It takes 8 months. And on the flip side, if the average deal length is 47 days and you're 6 months in and you haven't closed the deal, okay, something's off here a little bit, right? So your question is a good one, but it has to be rooted in benchmarking and what's real and what isn't real to make it sort of a real whether or not it's time for having a real conversation or not, right?
I would like to say yes to that. Maybe because, like I said, because I spent a lot of time in tech. It's, the idea of it being is this. I think the argument would have been is, well, then in your pipeline should always be you should always have multiple stages, multiple opportunities in different stages. So as one is funneling through, you always got that train flowing kind of thing. So
for sure.
Can I ask you this? Because there are different personalities that resonate. And let me be very clear. One does not need to be an extrovert in order to be successful in sales. Okay. That is not what I'm trying to say at all. But I do notice that, like, let's say, for example, our different roles within sales, right? You've got your business development, right? The quote person that seeks out the deals, the hunter, right? The name that we'd often hear about. And then you have those that are account managers they farm the account. So they're very relational and maybe manage a little bit more of that day to day. And then there's the inside, for example, inside sales, where they really are truly Johnny on the spot. They're sitting at the desk, can catch the paperwork stuff, if you want to call it that. Yeah. So how do you address that? Like in your coaching, do you deal with one group of sales more than other, or is it all, job descriptions?
It varies. If there are common skills that all of those different 3 or 4 group functions and roles you mentioned, if there are some common traits that they all have to be good at, then they can get trained together. And then separated out in workshops back to their own group for the workshops. But there's also times when certain roles and functions have different skills that the other groups don't have to be as good at. And so, any training company is diagnostic in terms of who would get that and who wouldn't get that, if you will. So that's kind of how that plays out.
And where, Stephen, I know on the fun side of sales, you've been to some pretty cool countries. Where's your favorite place to travel to I'm going to ask you business and personal. Business, where's your favorite spot?
My 2 favorite spots, at least domestically, is probably Washington, D.C., and the West Coast, the San Francisco area, partly the West Coast because I've been there so often. I actually know it better than even when I grew up in Boston. I know the West Coast better than I even know Boston. In D.C. because I like to walk, and it's just a great walking city, walking the monument. And so those 2 sort of jump out. And I think a second thing is any smaller kind of city, like, or the second cities, I think it's so much more fun than the big, huge cities and so forth. And then internationally, I'd probably say my favorite one might have been Stockholm. We went to an ice bar that you can only have 2 drinks. If you've ever been, maybe, but you have to wear a snorkel, and all the glasses are made out of ice, and they're 25 vodka drinks. And so, but because the colder you are, the quicker alcohol goes to your head. Literally, after 1, you're already like, woo! And so they will not serve you more than 2. And the entire bar is made of ice. The bar is made of ice. Everything's made of ice. So the only thing that's not ice is the suit that you have on. That was just the coolest. That was the
literally
thing.
Literally the coolest thing, right? Hey, check mark.
Yeah. That was
cool.
That was so cool. Yeah.
It's interesting that you mentioned some of the little, different cities. I was last year in Saratoga, New York, and I thought to myself, the last time the convention center was across the street from a hat shop. And you think about that. I cannot remember the last time I was in a hat shop. I don't even wear hats, so I'm not even sure why I went in, but it intrigued me enough. I had kind of a break in between. It wasn't long enough to go back to the hotel, but it was happening. I'm like, I'm going in. And I just spent 15 minutes looking at different hats. They had these funky purses for people. It was very unique. And I when I left there, I thought to myself, I wouldn't normally go to a hat shop, but I'm glad I did type of thing. And that's in Saratoga for anybody that's traveling to that convention center.
I had never been to Saratoga. In the last 2 years, I've gone to Saratoga. Believe it or not, just so funny you bring that up. That main street they have there with all the restaurants is awesome with a capital A. Anybody that listens to this, go to Saratoga. Sure, the horse racing's great, but there is a street that has one restaurant after another, and it's just got such a cool vibe. I highly recommend it.
Yeah. And I bet you now, if you go, you're going to be searching just because the hat shop.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I would love to see hats make a comeback. I think hats are so nice. They're cool.
I think they're, especially on women, I think they're so adorable on women.
Yeah, good stuff.
I can say that in this, right?
Oh, yeah. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. So as we kind of come up to the half hour mark, Stephen, anybody who is looking, let's say someone's in college, they're graduating in May, sales used to and still can have a stigma around it, right? Of, oh, stay away from those people. Nobody likes to be sold, right? To me, selling is just, if you get really good at it, it's really just about having conversations and seeing if there's a fit. And if not, you make a new friend and a new connection, and you never know down the road if you circle back in same capacity or a different capacity. But what would be one piece of advice that people could take from you as a very tenured coach? I don't want to say the old guy. No, I'm kidding. I'm only kidding. I know you well enough. But a very tenured, very experienced, very successful coach of an organization. What's one takeaway piece of advice?
Yeah, I would say I'm gonna sort of dot what you just talked about. Like buyers don't want to be sold. All they want is a salesperson to help them make a decision one way or the other. And so the key word and theme that we use throughout our entire engagement is a salesperson's success all comes down to their ability or inability to communicate. Because fundamentally, that's what we're doing all day long, whether it's an email, whether it's a Zoom call, whether it's an in-person meeting, whether it's a proposal we're writing, whether it's overcoming an objection. Well, if you think about it, it's either a written skill or an oral skill, or all we do all day long as a seller is we communicate internally and externally. So if you've ever come to one of my sessions, you probably wouldn't have even asked it, or you would have continued talking, Deanna, and you would have said, because Stephen, I know you literally, all you talk about in your sessions is your ability or inability to communicate is what sets you free, right? Now, what's interesting though, here's another thing that's changed in 24 years. Think about now how many colleges where you can get a minor in sales. It's crazy. I actually lecture at where I went to college, and there's now, I think, 470 colleges in this country that offer sales as a minor, and it is hotter than hot. Bryant University, local New England, is on fire as another college that's doing really good in that realm. So now today, kids are coming out with a minor in sales, and the whole thing has changed. They already want to get into sales. It's just a dramatic shift. It's crazy.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, great. Syya, any parting words from you and your tech sale background and how this all ties together?
No, it is so funny because it's sales is sales. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, right? It's all about relationship, as you had said, about do you have the ability to communicate? Can you make the people that you are, your clients or your buyers, are they comfortable with their decision? It's like us going to a retail store, right? Like, do I feel good buying that pair of shoes that I don't need, but darn it, it's so cute, right? And sometimes you do need shoes, right? And that's the whole thing around it. So big takeaways on that for sure. I'm so glad that we've connected finally after a lot of scheduling, and as is sales. Our travels, our schedules are sometimes not ours at times. So
yeah. No, it's been fun. And it's funny you just brought up something that I think is another I'll give a last point on I think what it takes to be great in sales today is how do you go in to a meeting and drive a need? Old school consultative selling, which the three of us have been around, is go in and understand somebody's need. The problem today is the world is moving so fast. These buyers are so overwhelmed that we meet with. Half of them don't know what they don't know about what they need. So if you really want to be successful today, anybody watching this, figure out a way to drive a need. These are the questions you ask. where people in a meeting look at you and say, I didn't even think I had a need, but based on the fact we just talked about that to me is the Shangri-La moment in sales, when a buyer in a meeting says, geez, I didn't even think we had that need, but geez, based on what we just talked about, I guess we do. Because otherwise that meeting, I call it a patty cake meeting. Otherwise that meeting would have been patty cake, baker's man. And you leave and you make a friendly in it, to your point, but you didn't move the needle. And I think today to really be great in sales, you got to go in driving needs, not just understanding needs.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's almost like, to your point, it resonates with connecting the dots for them, right? People are so busy, and it's just connect the dots for them and let them see it. And then the best feeling is when they are nodding, aha, you see the light bulb going off because you've driven the connection of the dots.
You know what we call it?
Listen,
what do we call it? Client into buying. Listen,
I like that.
Client into buying. When you reach the Hall of Fame of sales, when you can listen clients into buying.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's going to be my takeaway from you, Steve.
That is awesome. That is like, I hope people are taking notes. That's all I'm saying. We're having fun, but we're also taking notes. So I hate to wrap us up here, but so Stephen, how can we all get a hold of you? What's your best way that we can get people to connect with you to learn more?
Yeah, again, the company name is Coach Media. The website is coachmediapros.com. Coach Media was taken when we launched the company, so it's coachmediapros.com. And and our phone number is 978-265-6001. That's how you can connect. Thanks for asking.
Thanks a million. We had fun. We did. So good stuff. Thanks so much.
Yep.
Syya, always fun with you. Always fun too.
Always fun. Yes. And so guys, yet again, here's the thing about sales is we have a lot of experiences, and I think there are different methodologies. So I'm just going to sum it all up here, which is this. It has evolved. The quote techniques that we have learned in the past 30, 40, 50 years, I think rudimentary. Humans are still human, right? But I do believe what you said, Stephen, is ultimately you've got to have that level of communication skills to evolve to whatever's trendy or on trend or whatever the need is. Technology has accelerated our need to be valuable to our prospects and our clients, etc. So ultimately it's this: lean in with your personality, with who you are, educate yourself, because I think that's another thing about sales is you really got to know the industry and business of your clients. And I think, if you're likable, people will buy from people they know, like, and trust. And I always think that's always that fundamental thing. So Traveling Sales Lady, that's all I have to summarize our great chat today with Stephen. Thank you so very much. Want to bring it home.
And we will see you next time. Yeah, appreciate it. Always fun, always engaging. And we will see you next time.
Love it. Thanks, everyone.
Bye now.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.